So we have a wonderful guest today with Larisa Bailey, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. And Larisa does contact improv, and if you've never experienced contact improv, it's a little different. Tell us about. You said this started like in the 1970s or something like that. This style of dance, and tell us a little bit about how it came about and how you got involved in contact improv.
Sure. Yeah, it came out of the modern dance tradition. In the 1970s. There was a modern dancer named Steve Paxton who just got really interested in just the physics of what happens when two or more bodies come into contact with each other without any choreography, without any set plan. And he was really interested in the physics of it. So it developed from there, although it's evolved a lot. Basically what it is now, and it's done all over the world, in every continent, truly, it's a form of expressive movement where a place of contact with another person is the springboard for the improvisation or the exploration to happen. So true to form, there is no choreography. There are no dance steps to learn. It's true improvisation. It's really about being with, kind of tuning in. It's about tuning in to the moment and to the person who you're with. And then as you start to share gravity, which is what happens, you start to sort of, you've got your own gravity, your own center of gravity, your partner's got theirs, but you start to share it through that point of contact. You start to roll with it or push through it or work with it. And out of that is born the dance, as we say, although it really isn't necessarily even dance. It's just movement and exploration.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, that's what it is, although it's really hard to put words on this form because it can, from moment to moment, it's constantly shifting. It could be very slow and meditative, and then 2 minutes later, it could be very acrobatic and almost Aikido-like, and everything in between. So.
Yeah, and Larisa tried to explain it to me a few times, and I said, well, I'm going to have you on the show to talk about it. I have to actually go experience it so that I can better understand what it is. And I don't know if I can explain it any better than you can, even having now gone through the process. But it was interesting how it's very similar to just normal improv in the fact that you have kind of different games that you play along the way. And I don't know if anybody out there has taken an improv class, but when you're doing that, you do these little games that kind of spark, here's how you use your imagination again. Here's how you think outside the box, and here's how you go with the flow. And, it just kind of trains you to get out of yourself, get out of your head, and get into being who you're supposed to be and doing what you feel compelled to do. And the dance is kind of like that in many ways, where you just kind of set us up to, okay, go.
Exactly. And so the way that the Contact Improv Jam is held here in town, the way that I hold the space is that there's some time for that sort of skill building or those exercises that you talk about, Steve. And then that takes you into the free form jam time. And the idea is that as you sort of build up more vocabulary, because they're not dance steps, but it's sort of like more vocabulary about what can be done with this point of contact, because there's different things to do with it. Then when it is time for the free form jam time, you've just got more vocab words that you can make sentences with. And
Right.
It's more explorative, it's safer, and people are ready to go deeper into it. So that's the idea. So our contact improv jams here in town are a combination of a little bit of the guided work and then moving into the free form.
Mm-hmm.
Full contact improv. No one's safe.
No. That's what it is.
Something like that. So
Don't show up if you want to hide in the back. That's what we're saying, people.
Right. Now, how did you get involved in doing this and teaching this as well?
Okay. Well, I've danced basically all my life in one form or another. I love improvisational movement. And a couple years ago, a friend who was in town, he no longer lives here, and he was in the conscious movement community here, which I was a part of. And one day he was like, "Hey,
I have friends in that community.
Yeah.
Kathy Orovec and such.
Exactly.
Kathy Orovec was actually at the Contact Improv.
She was. And so Kathy Orovec
She's awesome.
Facilitates conscious movement. And so I met this other man in conscious movement, and he's like, hey, check this out. You might really like this. And so we spent a few weeks just, every other day getting together and doing some of this contact improv, and I just felt like I was coming home when he showed it to me. So I've just been studying it, going
Yeah.
to various workshops, and there was really no one else in town doing this work. So I was like, I'm just going to hold the space. I'm going to just be in the mystery with everyone else, and
Right.
just been studying.
And so how long have you been teaching it now?
And so the word teaching is not exactly accurate, so I'll just say
Facilitating.
that. Thank you. Okay. So much better to me.
Yeah.
Facilitating, holding the space.
Right.
We've been going for over a year now. So we started 2 Octobers ago.
Okay.
So just over a year. And at Ione's, at the Ione Health Center and Raw Food Cafe.
Yeah.
We're in the upstairs space. It's a really nice, kind of cozy space.
Where they do a lot of, they're doing the Love Circle there tonight with
They do so
with
many
Lucia
different
Gabriele, who
things.
was on here last week actually.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
and so
Yeah.
it's kind of cool that space is there, and then she's open to doing these kind of things and
That
giving
space
these
just kind of
opportunities.
radiates positive energy.
It really does.
Ione's
Yeah.
a sweetheart for allowing so many different things to happen there. Yeah, and it's got some good juju in that room because so much goes on there.
I love that term. Good
Right.
juju.
Thank you.
So what do people gain from doing this?
Wow, that's a big question. Yeah,
Please itemize.
Yes,
Yeah.
itemize. Exactly.
Discuss.
Right.
Prioritize.
Dissect. Yes.
okay. First of all, it just plain feels good. We have such a lack of touch in our society, and so just the connection with another person, once you come in contact with another person, about 20 seconds later, your body has oxytocin flowing through it, which is like the feel-good hormone, the hormone that just kind of gives you a nice, settled, feel-good state.
That's my
It's
favorite
really
hormone, by the way.
calming.
Totally.
It's my fave. It's really calming and soothing. The other thing that it gives people is a chance to just be in the unknown. We have our lives are so structured. There's so much compartmentalization. And this is you give yourself a couple hours to just step in and kind of check in and what's here today?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on here today? And the other thing that some people have said that it's helped them with is really connecting with others, not just in contact improvisation, but in their lives. In their other lives, because contact improvisation sort of forces the skill of being both with yourself and with the other person at the same time, and staying tuned into yourself, not losing that, but also listening in to what's going on with the other person. So it's actually a form of movement that's used sometimes in community building. And we're not doing that here specifically here in Sarasota, but it is used for example, in intentional communities and just building trust, building connection with each other that's nonverbal.
Right.
This sounds like something I could use, because normally when I touch people I've just met, Abby informs me it's inappropriate.
And see, you get 2 hours twice a month where it's so appropriate.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm on board. I believe I got to talk to the boss lady, but I think this sounds pretty good.
Yeah, you should. You should totally check it out. Just for the experience of doing it, because it does. It kind of tweaks your thinking a little bit, and tweaks the way that you interact with other people. Because sometimes we do get so caught up in what we think we're supposed to be doing, and everything is planned out, and
Right.
this just kind of just throws that away and really puts you in that vibe. And what I also find interesting is that you're not communicating with people verbally like we
Yes.
normally do, like we're doing right now. It's just more about eye contact is a really big part of it, and then the touch is obviously a really big part of it, and learning again to recognize the value and the strength of that kind of communication, where you're not just relying on language and words and the things that you say, but just the way that you operate.
Exactly, Steve. Yeah, and when you and it's a non-conversational space, and then when we let that go, we find that there's a whole other language kind of flowing underneath the current of that river, And so, yeah, it does. Most people say it travels with them outside of the room and into their daily lives.
Yeah, I think we could communicate a lot better if we didn't speak so much.
I
You know,
agree. Sometimes
if we
words
just-
miss the
Sometimes we
point.
just stop talking and just listen.
Abby's really good at it. You should see the look she shoots me sometimes when I'm saying or doing something that's completely not appropriate. Abby will just look at me, and I'm like, okay, sorry, honey.
Yeah. Well,
She's
women
very good at it.
Women are just ultimately a little bit better at
True
that
story.
kind of communication,
Yes.
being able to communicate that way. Guys
simple
are
monkey.
We're very simple. We're very dense, and we don't
I would agree with
always
both
get
those
that. So I think this is a good exercise for men to get into and actually say, hey, get into your body and learn to communicate a little bit differently and Yeah.
Absolutely. And actually, one of the men that comes regularly, he was telling me the other week that one of the things he's really benefited from is that it gives him a chance to find contact with other men. You know, because in our society, even men contacting other men happens even less than women contacting
Right.
women, you know. And so he's like, oh, this gives me this chance to actually go into like this different kind of dialogue with men that's safe, that's completely, you know, just about being in the moment. It doesn't
Puts
have
them on an even playing field.
doesn't have any meaning besides what it is.
Right.
So that was just
Yeah, it was interesting because when I was there, I knew the other guy who was there, you know, and so we've known each other for a couple of years, and it was interesting to not only be dancing and having these interactions with the women that were there, which it was majority women except for the two of us guys, but also
Which
to
isn't
experience that
always
with
the
him.
case.
Yeah, it's probably not. But yeah, that experience was kind of it was opening for me, I think, you know, and it opens up to something you don't normally do, and I think that's really what ultimately it does. It just lets you do something you don't normally do.
I think ultimately that's right. It is improvisation, and it's just come into the space and seeing what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't all that you do, though. You also teach other kinds of classes, and you do
y-
other kinds of services. Tell me about that.
No, this is not all that I do. I teach yoga and I teach and Pilates. That's what I primarily do.
Okay.
Yeah, and I teach primarily private individualized yoga and Pilates that's adaptive.
Right.
Meaning that it's adapted for people who have various challenges who might not be able to come to a regular yoga class. So we work to individualize programs.
Right. And how did you come into that kind of work? We have a master's in psychology. It seems like a kind of a long stretch from psychology to that.
It may seem so, but it's all kind of fitting. Well, like I said, I've always danced and always moved, and what I really wanted to do was do movement therapy, but then sort of got, you know, derailed on that and went more into a straight psychology program. But along the way, really realized that it's somatics, it's the mind-body connection that I'm passionate about. So yoga came into my life, and then Pilates, but then the therapeutic work, the psychology work came right back around because I found that my biggest joy was really working privately with people and really creating a container for therapeutic work to happen.
Right.
But not just verbally, as we were saying, but on the mind-body level.
Yeah.
So it all fit, actually.
That's exciting.
I love it.
I'll say now you do actually do yoga classes.
I
such
do.
As
I
the
do.
restorative yoga class you're doing.
I do teach a restorative yoga class, yes. It's just
Sarasota Mindfulness Institute.
Sarasota Mindfulness
Just
Institute.
throwing it out there.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
What is
December 22nd,
restorative?
8:30 a.m.
December 22nd is your next class?
Yeah, it's every Monday at
Okay.
8:30 a.m. at the Sarasota Mindfulness
1530
Institute.
Dolphin Street.
And that's-
6 Sarasota, Florida.
And that's for restorative yoga. How is that different than other types of yoga, like Kundalini or Sivananda or whatever?
Restorative yoga class, we use props so that we are able to hold the poses for longer than you may be able to without the props. So in other words, we let the poses work on us versus us working the poses.
So it's
if
kind
that
of
makes sense.
Yoga with training wheels.
It's yes.
That's the yoga I need right there.
Except that it's actually really opening. You know,
Right.
it's a misconception to think, oh, we're just lying around on bolsters and relaxing.
Sure.
We hold the poses for a while, and that allows a lot of opening to happen in the joints, in the spine, around the organs. So much happens,
Right.
even though it's really about kind of bringing your awareness internally and letting the nervous system drop down into a slower rhythm. You know, because our bodies are actually more attuned to the rhythm of the earth than the rhythm of the mind. The mind has a much faster rhythm, and it's sort of like dragging our bodies around much of the day. So the restorative yoga gives yourself a chance to let the nervous system settle down.
See, I'm not very flexible, so yoga with props so that I can actually hold a position sounds pretty appealing to me.
Yeah.
I found out last time I was at yoga that smoking a cigarette does not count as a prop. That's against the rules, apparently. Who knew?
Yeah, they kind of
Who knew,
frown
right?
on that.
Yeah, I have different props though in my restorative yoga class. And yeah, that's the idea, is that everyone should be able to do the pose. You just have to get creative with the props, and that's what we do there.
Right, and that's for somebody who is just wanting to get into yoga, and maybe they're not flexible like Gonzo, who needs something like that. That's kind of a good place to start, isn't it?
It's one good direction, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's funny because Abby went to yoga, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and she hadn't been in months. She's like, it was really hard to get back into those poses, but it felt really good after I was done. I was like, I couldn't even do it the first time, much less get into it. There's no way I could pull that off. I don't even, it's impressive to me, people who can do yoga, because I have no abilities.
Yeah.
Well, it's important to know that yoga is not about just like being flexible. It works on so many other levels, and it's a
From everybody I know,
tradition.
it functions far more on a spiritual level
for sure.
for centering.
Absolutely. The opening you create in your body, it's that same opening that's created in the mind and the spirit and the heart and the emotions. So it's as above, so below.
Yeah, and I think when you allow your body to act in that way and to do this thing that it wouldn't normally do in its everyday normal functioning of just being the rat in the maze that we often feel like, it does, as you said, opens up your mind to do that, and it opens up your spirit to do that, and opens up your heart. And I think anytime that you're putting yourself through that process and practicing any of these kind of things, it does a lot to affect your other bodies, not just your physical body.
Absolutely. It's the same thing that we were really speaking about with contact improvisation. You kind of leave feeling a little bit different, a little unraveled, a little undone, a little bit put back together again in a new way. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not
Same.
just, I mean,
It's
with
very
this
similar
kind of dance, the contact improv dance, it's not about the performance and that kind of thing. It's just
No.
about the experience of doing it. Because you don't have music on when you do it. It's just in silence.
Yes, usually contact improvisation is done in silence. Sometimes it's done with improvisational music, which is really nice, and we sometimes do have that. Sometimes there are local musicians who come and they actually improvise to our movement, and we improvise back to their music.
Right.
And that's really an amazing kind of co-creation.
Yeah.
But traditionally, contact improvisation focuses on the point of contact with the other person as being the springboard for the improvisation, not necessarily the music or the rhythm of the music. So it's a little bit different than other improvisational forms.
Right. No, don't you also do, you were doing the aimless art for a while. Are you still doing that?
Actually, I'm not anymore.
Oh.
Yeah,
But it
just
was
my
cool.
schedule. It was really cool. It was really cool, but just my schedule got so busy with more and more clients for yoga and stuff, so I
Yeah.
had to let that go. But yeah, it was very cool.
But it's cool that we have those experiences to be able to just try something new and different just for the sake of doing it, And that's largely the reason that you do these kind of things. I mean,
Absolutely.
for contact improv and whatnot, just to be able to have that experience.
Well, with all this work, I think my biggest intention is for people to really honor their own wisdom, like to tune in, to tune into their inner voice and honor that and just give space for that. So it's all related.
It is all related. Cool. So how do people find out about more about the classes? They have a website they can go to?
Well, so for the Sarasota Contact Improvisation Jam, there's a Facebook page.
Okay.
And so if they just go on Facebook, it's Sarasota Contact Improvisation.
Okay.
And I send out invitations for each one of the jams that happens, and they can find all the information on there. So the jams happen every second and fourth Wednesday
Okay.
of the month.
Of the month.
At Ione's, every second and fourth Wednesday of the month at Ione's from 7 to 9 p.m.
Cool.
Um,
And you do it on a low donation basis, so people
It's
can
a-
just come and.
It's a donation basis. So we ask that people, donate something, whatever they can. And if they can't donate monetarily, they could, bring something for the altar or bring a piece of fruit or something just for the energetic contribution.
Okay.
And also, I just want to mention one other special event, if I could.
Sure.
On January 1st, on New Year's Day, I am co-facilitating with Kathy Oravec, who we mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
a special event on New Year's Day. It's called Sacred Movement, New Beginnings. And it's it starts at noon. It's a 3-hour workshop on Siesta Key at Access 7.
Wow.
And we are going to be doing a combination of conscious movement that Kathy facilitates, contact improvisation, which we've been talking about, and just some some mandala making on the beach, so some intention setting for 2015, and it's just going to be a nice gathering. This is the second year we're doing it. We did it last year too. It was fabulous.
Wow, what a great way to
So,
start the year.
Yeah, it's just a really great way to start 2015, just sort of gratefully sending off 2014 and
Reminding yourself on Siesta Beach that you live in paradise is
Yes.
probably not a bad thing for Christmas.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
New Year's.
New
New
Year's.
Year's Day.
Oh,
New
New
Year's Day.
Year's.
New Year's
Oh.
Day, January 1st from 12 to 3 we'll be there. And so also there's a Facebook page for that, and
Okay.
it's called Sacred Movement, New
Sacred-
Beginnings.
Sacred Movement, New
I don't
Beginnings
know
on
if you're aware,
Facebook.
she's a minor celebrity. She was just in the Herald Tribune Style magazine they put out on Sundays.
I was.
Yeah, that's the one you sent me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So that was fun.
That was fun. So yeah,
I'm hitting all the media,
If you
apparently.
can grab a copy of
Yeah.
Style on it, it's a good article. It's again, same with Chuck. It's too much for me to read on the air, but
Yep.
it's it kind of gives some of your background and more about what contact improv is. And so if you're interested in it, you can check that out in Style magazine from this last week. Well, Kathy,
We've been talking about
That's
Kathy
Okay,
already.
we've been
talking
talking about
Kathy,
Kathy.
yes.
We love Kathy.
we do love
do.
Kathy.
Kathy, if you're
Kathy's
listening, we
here.
love
Yes, she's here in spirit. So thank you, Larisa, for coming out and telling us about Contact Improv. And
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's
Thank you for having me. This
you're
is
so
great.
welcome.
Yeah, so come on out,
Yeah.
everyone.